around it.
This minute, I did tweak the title. I don't think it totally made it all the way across. This is going to be a shortened version of what's new with ArcGIS field maps with high accuracy GNSS. If you were around on Tuesday afternoon, Esri already gave a larger presentation at the high level view, if you will, about a 45-minute overview of what is new with ArcGIS, aka field maps, the next iteration of collector. So I am not going to go as in depth, but I will have a little surprise for you guys at the end that you can join us in March for a webinar. All right, we'll get started here. So what's new with
We
ArcGIS field
lost your
maps? You've
audio,
already,
Jay.
pardon?
Oh, we can hear you, Jay. Go ahead.
Okay. If I need to turn up volume, let me know. So what's new with high accuracy in conjunction with the new ArcGIS field maps? Real quick, if you're not familiar with where Siler is located, based out of St. Louis, Missouri, but here's a quick map. Gail and I are technically based out of the Franklin, Milwaukee office, but of course work remotely, even before COVID. So ArcGIS field maps, what is it? I like to equate it as there's been a new and improved wrapper put around and expanded of what is offered for field maps, if you will. They were named it that specifically, but it does have some of the apps that you are familiar with embedded in it for one-time login and ease of use, if you will. So you're not constantly having to flip screens, close one app, open up another one. So as you can see there on the left-hand side, this is bringing into one main app called ArcGIS Field Maps. Top left one there is Explorer. Then you've got Collector, which we've known for the last couple of years. You also got something new with tracking capabilities called Tracker. You still have Workforce available there and also navigation tools through their Navigator app. So the evolution, as Gail and I have seen this in the last 6+ years, on the left-hand side, you have what was known as Collector, but then when another iteration came out via the Aurora beta project for iOS, they named that one Collector, changed the symbol slightly, and then called the traditional one for iOS and Android Classic. And just a quick note, if you ever do call in for support, I will always ask the field person, what does the symbol look like? Because that helped differentiate what version of Collector they were using over time. Especially the first one had the little flip, you curl the piece of paper on the clipboard. The next one I like to equate to as, either your Nike swoosh or your Amazon swoosh coming in from the left. And then now you see the app on the right, similar, but they've changed the coloring a little bit and the design to show more of a parcel map. As far as what the minimum requirements are, as any app grows these days, the developers have to set a minimum, which means, unfortunately, some hardware is left in the dust. So as you can see all the way down there at the bottom, the new minimum requirements for field maps, ArcGIS field maps, is iOS 13.5 and then Android 8 of a specific API. As you will notice, there is no Windows 7, 8, 10 support for field maps. Esri is not developing on Windows 10 for apps of this nature at this time. So some key capabilities all in one app now for one sign-in. Doesn't matter if you are at the lowest level, the field user, all the way up to the GIS professional, per the 5 access points that you can get into using ArcGIS or AGO or Arc Pro. You still have map viewing, of course, the markup capabilities that you had with Esri Explorer. Data collection, of course, is there. That's always been the heart and soul of Collector. Asset inspections, and then also now you've got location tracking if you do turn it on the backside. Some benefits, again, you've got the all-in-one app as far as signing in, less to have to figure out, well, which one do I download, which one do I use today? Again, sign in with your ArcGIS subscriptions that you've already been allocated to for your users in the field or in the office. You're eliminating the duplication of offline content. And then also smaller aggregate app footprint download. And it's a nice clean download, and it looks very similar. They're not exactly the same, but they are much more similar than they used to be for iOS and Android. If you had used previous versions of Collector, if you flipped and flopped between Android and iOS, you did notice some differences that kind of were irritating, if you will. And then also too, consistency across apps in general when they did some development behind the scenes. Some other key capabilities, diving deeper into this. I'm not going to read everything here from the bullet points, but as you can see, they are trying to get the experience and the capabilities to be one these days. There's a lot more going on behind the scenes. They, of course, have continued with high accuracy GNSS, which I'll talk about towards the end of the presentation. And just viewing certain things within the software, they've made it cleaner as far as where buttons are and just the overall, API experience, user experience is what they were after. This became official in December. There were some soft releases back in early fall, but December 2020 is considered the latest and greatest. There's been some minor tweaks, of course, but this is when it was rolled out. So again, like I discussed a little bit earlier, you still have access to a few field maps, just like you did with Collector or your other apps. If you were at the field worker level, the creator level, or the GIS Pro named user level. So nothing has really changed there. You just still gain access to all the benefits of what's inside of now ArcGIS field maps underneath the hood, so to speak. Tracker capability is out there if you do set it up. Your licenses are easy to use, whether it's online or offline, just like you had experiences before. Also, too, there are some specific features that are available on iOS, as you can see from this screenshot. You can sign in with your Apple accounts. There are dark modes that you can use. This will help out, especially if you're outside on a sunny day like today. You can struggle sometimes on some apps if you do not have the proper screen matte finish, if you will, or screen protector that can help you see to get rid of some of that glare. Split view, if you're using an iPad, the much bigger screen real estate, as you can see there in the middle. You can see different things that are going on from within the app itself. There is some scribble support with iPad, and then also too, if you have an Apple Watch, it does support for Apple for the tracking side within field maps. So that is the quick glossy overview, if you will, even less than what was on Tuesday's call. But I'll talk more about what we're going to be talking about in March with Esri and the apps team. So getting into the high accuracy, if some of you attended our presentation that Gail and I did at WLIA Middleton last year, this is going to be similar, except for the new nuances that are going on within iOS and Android for field maps. But just one thing to cover real quick. What is high accuracy GNSS and why would you use it? So here's a quick example of, in red is high accuracy example. This was actually previous to the R2s. This was an example of a Geo XH subfoot unit along with an iPhone. And as you can see from the red versus the blue is not as good as you would hoped. So this is just to kind of still give that cross comparison of a professional grade tool, whether it's mapping or survey, to a consumer grade, if you will, your phones, your iPhones, your Androids, or your tablets. So I won't stay on this slide too long, but as you can see, the oval down there in the bottom middle, or the drain that is showing up on the roof of the building versus where it should be out in the grassy area, those are concerning when it does come to accuracy. Now, granted, the attribute information may be correct, but the GNSS geoposition information could cause some problems down the road. So high accuracy, what is it and how can you use it and how can you view it? Of course, we are a Trimble dealer, so I'm going to speak from the Trimble side, but other dealers or manufacturers of GPS equipment have also been working with Esri behind the scenes to go from collector to the new field maps. So if you happen to be using a non-Trimble gear, those manufacturers should also have their own app to integrate with the GNSS receiver or GPS receiver only and the new field maps. Here's a quick example of what the Trimble Mobile Manager app looks like on the far right here, as far as accuracies after being collected with the new field maps. But within high high accuracy for field maps. The Z is now finally being exposed, if you will. You still have to do some tweaking behind the scenes in ArcGIS Pro and or an ArcMap, but it is easier now to collect, especially if, and you of course have to Z enable your geodatabase before even publishing it, but it is now being exposed more in depth within the Field Maps app itself and also in the Trimble Mobile Manager app. Understanding accuracy, of course, you can always go into the GNSS bar or GPS bar, depending on the app. GPS metadata or GNSS metadata is still being used as it had been in other collector previous apps. You just have to know how to actually create it. You can create it still at the desktop level, ArcGIS Pro or ArcMap, or if you're starting from scratch with new maps and the templates within AGO, you can check mark a box that multiplies and populates all the GNSS fields for you so that you don't have to pick and choose. Of course, you can always delete those fields if you don't need them. Within the app, it's very similar to if you use the previous version of Collector for Android or iOS in the last year, you still do need to set up your location provider, which is the GPS device, and then the profile as far as getting the datum transformation to work from your correction source to what the map datum is actually set to. So high accuracy, what does this really mean? Well, better than your phone. How about that? At least for now, until something ever changes with the phone industry. So you can get 1 to 3 meters with some sort of versions of high accuracy. That would traditionally be your SBAS from the Federal Aviation that is satellite based. If you're trying to get sub-foot or better, you can use a state-run or private-run VRS, virtual network. Here in Wisconsin, of course, we've got our own Wisconsin DOT. And or Trimble also has a service subscription called RTX, which is worldwide via satellite and or cellular IP. Of course, you can also get down to centimeter level with our R2s and or the Trimble survey side, which I will show us that screenshot coming up here in a little bit, what is supported on the Trimble GNSS receivers with the new field maps. There are some customer stories associated with using high accuracy with collector and now field maps. I don't know if the video is showing on the right-hand side. Can somebody give me a heads up on that? Okay. That is an example down in Colombia. It's a Trimble story called Land Ownership. The link is right there, but it'll also be at the very end of the slideshow. They were trying to map out, parcels, if you will, and who owns what. It's very important to, farmers in any state or country to know where their boundaries are and then to prove in case anybody is encroaching on your land. Also, there's a customer story too about mapping and gas utilities, which might hit home a little bit more in the United States. So real quick, what is high accuracy GNSS if you're not familiar with it? For what we're using for traditionally here in Wisconsin or other DOT type state-run VRS or RTN networks, here's a quick little slide of showing orbiting GPS GNSS satellites up on the left-hand corner. It's a raw autonomous GNSS radio frequency that is coming down to local base stations and also your GNSS receiver. Behind the scenes, the magic is happening where that server is maintaining all of those base stations throughout Wisconsin and or other states or private networks. And it is being checked into a control so that it knows that it's always supposed to be at a certain X, Y, and Z. What we are then doing is dialing in via cellular modem. Generally, if you got a smartphone, that is your modem. But if you're using a smart tablet, if it doesn't have a Verizon or AT&T embedded SIM, you're going to then need some sort of modem to get yourself onto the internet for the corrections. Also, that internet connection will help you sync data within any of the apps for Esri. Here's a quick little screenshot of where all the base stations are located for Wisconsin for WISCORS. You can always go out to the link if it shows up down there at the bottom, the Trimble pivot web table, and you can actually click on these individually. And if the colors do change, that means that there's something not kosher, something's not right with one of those base stations. If you see something yellow, orange, or red, you can click on it and find out the health of the base station, why it may not be fully up and running. But these are the base stations here in Wisconsin. And if you happen to work along the border of Upper Michigan, Minnesota, Iowa, there are base stations that are co-opted through those DOTs. So you can run along the border and still be connected and get a correction as long as you've got IP, of course. Like I said earlier, here are the 4 main GNSS receivers for high accuracy that we offer both in the mapping and the survey realm within Siler Geospatial. The R1 on the left is your sub-meter device. The R2 is also in the mapping world, if you will, that Gail and I support and train on. That one can be from 1 meter all the way down to 1 centimeter. So it is scalable depending on what accuracy you unlock at time of purchase, or you can upgrade down the road. The 2 on the right are the Trimble survey grade receivers. The R10 has a Model 1 and a Model 2, and the more recent one in the last year is the R12. These are all compatible with the new field maps and, of course, previous versions of Collector, depending on if it was iOS or Android. And I don't know if this is going to work real quick, but this is when demos go really wrong, right? Let's see if I can bring this up and then share this screen real quick. Okay, do you guys see this website that says Trimble Mapping and GIS Solutions Product Configuration Guide?
Yes, we can see it.
Good. Okay. This is the new and improved online version. In the past, if you had ever used any of the Trimble TerraSyncs or the Esri ArcPad tools, and you wanted to figure out if it was compatible with your devices back in the day, this one now is an online, let's call it our GNSS configuration Bible, if you will, between software apps and the actual hardware. So similar to a spreadsheet here, we've got the headers or categories up at the top. If you look for field maps, here's field maps now. And if I scroll slowly here, don't know what the delay will be here. As you can see, field maps for the column of Android and Apple are compatible with the R1. They're compatible with the R2. Only compatible, backwards compatible with an R8 Model S if you're on the latest firmware. That's why there's only one check mark there. With the R10, there were limitations with iOS, so it will only be Android compatible. But the R10 Model 2 is now starting to be compatible with iOS, and the same thing with the new R12, if you will. And again, some of these are orange, some of them are red, so you do have to hover over them to find out, well, what are the limitations? So this is a nice little QA/QC. I do have this link live, if you will, in the PowerPoint when it does get released to everyone that wants it via WLA. I don't know if it's going to be some sort of Google Drive or Dropbox, but it will be available. I will switch back to the PowerPoint. 1 second here. All right. Can you see the R series again back on the PowerPoint?
Yep, you're back in your slides.
Good. All right. Whew. That was easy.
That worked. It's a really good URL for people to have a concept of. You can just Google Trimble product configuration guide and you'll find it.
Yes.
But it's like Jay said, you used to have to always ask us what's the compatibility, and there was a big PDF that we'd go look it up in. It's nice now. It's nice that this is being maintained online. It's the picture in a matrix of what
Yeah.
works with what.
And being visual,
maintained by
you know,
Trimble.
that's we like to see, okay, it goes with this, great, it works in this matrix. Sometimes I've noticed too, depending on if there are going to be newer releases of products, if you will, or firmwares, sometimes go back in there and double check or ask us, has it been updated recently, this particular website. Sometimes there will be maybe the yellow question mark or orange question mark. It might say in development.
Right.
But
And then
not
when you
100%, but not 100% tested or certified yet. So you can even see that too when you hover over some of those little check marks.
and you have the information that when you hover over it tells you a little bit about like Jay said, either firmware or the application or the configuration app you might need to use, because the older ones
Yes,
use GNS status and the new ones use TMM.
exactly.
That chart tells you that basic information when you hover over any one dot in the chart.
And that's a good segue. Thanks, Gail, because now when you use field maps, both for iOS and Android, you will be using the exact same app from, of course, the appropriate stores, if you will, from Android or iOS. And it is TMM, Trimble Mobile Manager. The old GNSS status app you do not use with this. That is with the old, very old Collector Classic. So going forward, always use TMM unless you hear otherwise from us on a blog post or you look up on that configuration guide. So here's a quick screenshot of it. I'm not even in field maps. This is straight up Trimble Mobile Manager. I'm connected to my R2 centimeter on the left-hand side. Of course, there's some other behind the scenes configurations on how I got WISCores to work. But those are things that we cover, usually during a training class. On the right-hand side is showing my fix location, my RTK fix, lat long. It does show now both the ellipsoid height, HAE, and the MSL. It's not going to show me, of course, state plane coordinates, but it's just showing me the raw lat long here after a correction. And then it's showing you that major difference. We've always had that confusion of what is HAE versus mean sea level, height above the ellipse versus mean sea level. Right there, you can see the calculation. And again, the horizontal precisions there are located there, the vertical telling me what geoid model I have. And that is why I'm getting that orthometric MSL height, because within the Trimble Mobile Manager app itself, you tell it what geoid you wish to use that gives you the mathematical equation or difference between HAE and MSL. And then, of course, scrolling down, it would show me how many satellites are tracked, how many are locked into. And then here's a quick example in the cul-de-sac that I live in. First on the left, and Gail pointed this out to me, haha. This is a good test for symbology right here. I don't even know if I collected that hydrant or not. Of course, I synced it. I know it's synced, but where is it? Well, the next photo in the middle is I stepped back from the hydrant. There's my symbology. It's now exposed. So that's a good quick test too. If your symbology is not large enough, you might want to go in and tweak that before you publish, or tweak it one last time, maybe in ArcGIS Online. On the right-hand side there, that's exposing within, this is actually within field maps. You can tap up at the very top blue bar that shows you, or right here, it's actually black in this case. If I tap on where my GPS accuracy is, this all gets exposed right in front of me. So I can spot check here, not within the collector or field maps app, but within the display of what's going on behind the scenes. Because remember, I told Trimble Mobile Manager to give me geoid 18. So right here, 933.2, this is a mean sea level elevation. And as you can see, there's more information. This is kind of handy too. Battery life, how much battery life is on that R2? That is very handy right there. Some other examples real quick then. So that same hydrant, took a photo of it, as you can see on the far right, but the photo is embedded within the quick little template that we made for doing hydrants. Quickly could spell out down here in my comment, I put remove snow. If you're in some communities or cities, Evansville has a city ordinance. As you can see, a couple of weeks ago when we had a large snowstorm, the Bobcat did come in and scooped out, but the last couple snowstorms, the neighbors have not gotten back to this. So depending on if what your city rules are, this could be a violation. And my guess is, which neighbor do you give the violation to? Because it's right on the property line. So
No,
just there's my footprints you can see in the snow there.
Jay, I hate to interrupt you here, but I
Yeah.
think we're getting to the point of being out of time.
Okay.
I just
Fair
want to give
enough.
you a minute if there's any questions for you to answer.
Yeah, if any chats are coming in, Gail, if you want to take a look at those real quick. But here is the last thing that I was promising you guys. So if you did sit in on the Esri What's New with Field Maps on Tuesday and you want to learn more, Jeff Shaner is our guest speaker, product manager of the apps team, March 8th. Please sign up. Limited seating is available. We've actually already got 80 people signed up already. We had to extend our ceiling higher than 100. We've extended it now to 500 for the number of Zoom attendees. So please do check this out. I did post it several times within the chat. Gail, if you want to, you can post it in the chat right now for this link. We do need you to register, and Jeff Shaner is going to be joining us to talk about the field side of it. And I'm going to, with my coworker, Joe Mott, be talking about the high accuracy, which you just saw here. The rest of this is just all resources. So
Yep, I did post
Gail
that
or
link.
Emily, any questions?
I answered one question about an R8 model, and I did post that link in the chat.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
as always, you
Yeah.
can find us on the website and follow the resources that Jay's got, and copies of the presentation
Sure.
will be posted like everybody else.
Yep.
And lastly, if you guys want to submit your photos, we've got a contest going on for a $50 gift card, Visa gift card. Also, too, if you don't even win the contest, you could be in the yearly calendar. And as you can see, there's a collage down there of mapping and survey people on the far right there that have made it in past calendars.
Thank you very much, Jay.
welcome.
Thank you, Gail. We
Yeah.
are out of time.
Okay.
So please direct any questions over to their emails here for Jay and Gail and
Sounds
to
good.
Siler. So
Thank you.
thanks again. Great presentation.
You're welcome. All right. Thanks again for all your hard work at WLA, everyone.